with me, and we'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in a world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Gonna change the world. There's nothing to it.
Mass Communications, Brandon.
Hey Brendan, it's Prentice.
Hey boy, what's up?
Not much, you?
About the same, just walked in from work.
How's the new job working out? You like it so far?
You bet. It's great because all those boring classes I took with Dr. Farmer are finally coming in handy.
Really? How?
Because I am an expert at finding things to do when I am bored.
I hear you, bud. So did you ever finish that project you were working on?
No. Still working on the set, believe it or not.
You know, eventually you're gonna have to quit tinkering with that thing, right?
5 years and counting, I don't think it's in danger of being finalized anytime soon. And hey, got me the job, so you know there must be something to it. Oh, did I tell you they revised our offer?
No, you didn't. What was it, $32,000 a year?
Not anymore. They took one look at that Comm Theory project and they were like, we gotta have this kid.
What they wind up giving you?
$45,000 a year.
Yeah, right. Fresh out of college with no experience. And all you had to do to get them to give you that much was to make your own prices right set.
Well, I did have to tell a few jokes.
Yeah, it's a miracle you got the job at all.
I've heard your jokes.
Hey, it worked, didn't it? It's a great government job that has a built-in promise for advancement. Hey, I just wish you had a job like that.
Yeah, maybe. I'll give you this one.
Good man. Alright, bud, well, I need to get back to work on this thing. Got a long way to go before I can call it a done deal. I'll see you around, alright?
Alright, man. See you.
Alright, man. Peace.
Bridges is so full of it.
He thinks I'm so full of it. If he only knew.
Going to love this. Just love it.
For that wonderful welcome. Now let me just say one thing. For 35 years, when Bob Barker came through those doors, there was always a beautiful young lady standing right here with his microphone. Obviously that didn't happen tonight, but I tell you, it would almost be worth carrying a hand mic the whole show, just so I could be on stage with a pretty girl. Now, as some of you are perhaps aware, this is not the first behind the screens that we have done. After our first show aired, our producer, a man named Dean Farmer, who's sitting right over there, asked me if I'd gotten any feedback from our audience. I just looked at him and said that I had not. He said that I should, so that if I did another show, I could use their feedback to make it better. So I said fair enough, and I asked some of our viewers what they thought. And one of them, a young man who shall remain nameless, asked me, "Brandon, when are you going to do a show that tells men how to communicate with women?" I just looked at him and I said, "I don't know about you, but I don't understand it well enough to explain it, let alone do a whole show on it." And he said, "You're smart, you can figure it out." And I just looked at him and said, with a straight face, all the men on the planet couldn't figure it out if their lives depended on it. Dr. Farmer, when I asked them for feedback last time, they said I should make the show funnier. Did that do it? No. Get on with it. Get on with it, he says. All right, if we have to. Hey, thanks for joining us, folks. Welcome to Behind the Screens, a show for people trying to figure out that thing called communication. You know, like why men and women can't do it? Anyone who's had Dr. Michael Ray Smith will say that the golden rule to communication is that we get it wrong. Tonight, though, we're looking at something different. The golden rule that says life is all one big story.
Now, there's this notion out there that all forms of communication tell a good story. But what is a good story? Using America's favorite game show as a model, let's find out. To tell a good story, you need 5 basic elements: conflict, characters, beginnings, middles, and ends. A typical episode of The Price is Right fits that model perfectly. For conflict, contestants go head-to-head to win their way up on stage and play one of the show's more than 80 pricing games, each with its own unique challenges to overcome.
So we're playing cliffhangers. The idea is not to hurt the Yodel Man. We're going to show you 3 products. You're going to tell us the price, and then hopefully the Yodel Man won't go off the cliff.
Host Drew Carey and announcer Rich Fields are the stars of The Price is Right, along with the pricing games.
Take it from the fat guy with the microphone. Resealable Oreo bag rocks.
But the real characters are the 9 lucky contestants chosen for each episode who bring the show to life with their energy and enthusiasm.
Yvonne, do you ever hear YouTube? You're going to hear about YouTube in about a week or 2.
The show always begins the same way, with Rich calling the first 4 contestants to come on down. Then it's the first item up for bids, and then the show's first pricing game.
You're going to push these blocks, and when you see the 4 numbers that coincide with the actual retail price of the catamaran line up in this blue area right here, you're going to stop pushing.
After 3 games, the show hits its midpoint, where players spin the big wheel for a shot at $11,000. The last player standing in each showdown wins their way to the showcase at the end of the show.
Our price is right. Don't go away.
The second half of each episode follows the same format as the first half, with 3 more pricing games followed by another showcase showdown. After that, it's time for the showcases, where players bid on the most expensive prizes of the day.
1, 6, 5 zeros with another 0.
$16,500.
Drew reveals the retail prices for each showcase, and once we learn who won, it's time for the closing credits, and then we do it all again the next day. What we're talking about is called the narrative paradigm, and I thought who better to explain it than the man behind the theory. Will you please welcome Dr. Walter Fisher, Professor Emeritus at the Annenberg School for Communication. Dr. Fisher, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So, what's the basic idea behind your theory?
Well, the basic idea behind everything I've written is that humans are essentially storytelling fools.
Really, what do you mean?
Well, it all comes down to is the fact that when people are retelling a story, even if they're trying to provide evidence for something, they're essentially trying to tell a good story. Now, I heard what you said about The Price is Right having all the basic elements of a good story. Wouldn't have thought to use that particular example, but you got the basic idea.
You said I've got the basic idea. What's your take on it?
All forms of communication that appeal to our reason are best viewed as stories shaped by history, culture, character, that sort of thing. And if we want to know whether we should believe the truth in what we hear, everything should be viewed as some kind of narrative. My theory, narrative paradigm, refers to the belief that there is no communication of ideas that is purely descriptive.
Interesting. Now, if we're going to believe the truth in the stories that we hear, what do we need to know about the storytellers themselves?
Well, there's a couple of things to remember, both when telling a story and when hearing one. First, it's that people are essentially storytellers. That's what we are and that's what we do. Second, we make decisions on the basis of good reasons, which are going to be different based on the type of communication we're dealing with. If it's philosophical, technical, rhetorical, artistic, all of that changes how you hear what you're listening to. Third, our history, our biography, our culture, and our character determine what we consider good reasons. Fourth, narrative rationality is determined by the coherence and fidelity of our stories. We'll get into that a little bit later, but the basic idea there is, does it hang well together and does it make sense? Finally, the world is basically a set of stories from which we choose and thus constantly recreate our lives. Think about it in terms of a library. You walk in and there's stacks and stacks and stacks of books, but only the ones that you pick up and read become a part of your existence.
So what happens when we pick up a bad book?
Well, the thing to remember is that not all stories are going to be good. There's no guarantee people aren't going to adopt a bad story, but the theory is everyone applies the same standards of narrative rationality to the stories that they hear.
Okay, so how do we figure out if a story is good or bad?
There's two ways to do it: narrative coherence and narrative fidelity.
That sounds complicated.
Well, that's the beauty of it. It's not once you understand it. Coherence has to do with how probable the story sounds to the listener. Does it hang together? Do the people and events it portrays seem to be of one piece? Are they part of an organic whole? Do the characters act consistently? Stories hang together when we're convinced that the narrator hasn't left out important details, fudged the facts, or ignored other plausible interpretations. We judge the coherence of a narrative by comparing it with other stories we've heard that deal with the same theme. And for me, the ultimate test of narrative coherence is whether we can count on the characters to act in a reliable manner. We're suspicious of accounts where characters behave uncharacteristically, but we tend to trust stories of people who show continuity of thought, motive, and action.
Wow, that's a lot. There's more to this, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll have more with Dr. Fisher after we do a little business with you. Don't touch that dial. Behind the Screens is coming right back. Stay tuned. Next time on Behind the Screens.
Hey man, this is really cool.
Ever wondered what those funny little letters are at the start of your favorite show or movie? We wondered that too.
Little surprises around every corner, but nothing dangerous.
Join us as we explore the untold story behind all those ratings from the MPAA.
Rating things for older audiences can have what they call the forbidden fruit effect.
Special guest star Jack Valenti tells all on the next Behind the Screens.
Stop acting like a 13-year-old.
Sorry.
I just got this report from our intelligence unit.
Mad agents have hidden a bomb in the amusement park. They're going to hold the city for ransom. The bomb is set to go off in half an hour. This message will self-destruct. Wowzers, Chief! I've got to find that bomb. Huh? Wowzers! That guy must be the mad bomber. Stop! Stop in the name of the law! Oh! Halt, you hooligan! There's no hope of escape!
with Dr. Walter Fisher, Professor Emeritus at the Annenberg School for Communication. Before the break, Dr. Fisher had just explained the concept of narrative coherence, one of two tests that we use to evaluate what we hear. Dr. Fisher, what can you tell us about the second test?
The second test is called narrative fidelity, and that's the quality of a story that makes it strike a chord in the audience. We say that a story has fidelity when it rings true with the hearer's experiences. It squares with the stories they might tell about themselves. It seems believable.
So basically, stories that have fidelity are stories that the audience believes because it's something that they could see happening to themselves.
Right. A story has fidelity when it provides good reasons to guide our future actions. When we buy into a story, we buy into the type of character that we should be. Besides The Price is Right, what's your favorite show?
House.
Okay. Which character do you buy into most? House or Wilson?
House, without question.
Why?
Because I'm really sarcastic and I've been known to treat people unfairly every now and then.
Right. And because you and House share that common characteristic, you believe that what House does is realistic because it's something that you could easily see happening to you. Cool, huh?
I hadn't thought of it that way. You make an interesting point.
And that's why it's best to view all communication as a narrative. When you do that, people don't need specialized training or expertise to figure out if a story holds together. And there's still a place for experts to provide input from their respective fields, but when it comes to evaluating coherence and fidelity, people with ordinary common sense are usually competent critics.
So basically you're saying, with a little common sense, anyone can spot a fake story.
You got it.
Dr. Fisher, thanks for joining me. All right, so we know all about Dr. Fisher's theory. When we come back, I'm going to tell you what it all means. Stay with us. Folks, our topic for today is narrative paradigm, and one of the main parts of it is learning how to tell what's real and what's not by spotting things that don't belong. It's a good theory, but it's also important to remember that no theory is perfect. We're using the set from The Price is Right as it appeared during the show's 32nd season, and I've gone to great lengths to recreate the show's look and feel. But in addition to a studio that's accurate down to the last detail, there's also a few things that don't belong and have never been seen on the daytime Price is Right. The HD monitors between the doors are one example. While they were inspired by the set dressings for the most recent primetime special honoring Bob Barker's retirement, live screens like that have never been used on the show. The same can be said of the big projection screen behind the audience. Again, inspired by something that appeared on the last nighttime show, but not accurate to anything we've actually seen. Sure, it looks cool, but it's never actually been seen on the air. And by the way, neither has the combination of those elaborate star patterns with these particular big doors. All of it looks like something you might reasonably expect to see on The Price is Right, but only certain parts have actually appeared. The rest is my custom design for Studio 33. You just don't think much about it because it all seemed to hang together. A reminder that there's exceptions to every rule. I'm Brandon Bridges, and this is Behind the Screens. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away. $13.50, Bob. I've always wanted to do that. You ever noticed on The Price is Right how all the bids down here in Contestants Row are so different? Why is that? If the contestants are all bidding on the same prize, shouldn't the bids be close together? Not necessarily. Each bid is different because each person interprets the prize descriptions based on their background. It's going to be different for everybody. And stories work much the same way. As Dr. Fisher told us, a lot of things come into play to determine how we interpret a story. Plain and simple truth of it is, like spins on the big wheel, no two people are exactly the same. Still, everyone has similar standards to figure out if a story is true or not. Ordinary people can make the call. Dr. Fisher says that anyone with common sense can tell the good stories from the bad ones. So if that's true, why do lawyers exist? Turns out there's more to it than meets the eye. What lawyers do is present two theoretically logical interpretations of the same facts. When constructing their strategies, they apply the same test to their arguments that Dr. Fisher does. Does it make sense? Does everyone act the way they're supposed to? Does anything seem out of place? If an attorney's story didn't connect with the audience, neither a judge nor a jury would accept their story. The truth is, because everyone's background is different, things that seem logical to one person might not seem so logical to another. So if you hear something that sounds outlandish, just think about what else you know about the person and their circumstances, and see if what they say fits.
The pen is blue. The pen is blue! The damn pen is blue!
It's usually pretty easy to figure out types of good storytelling and types of bad storytelling. Good storytelling happens when you hear something that sounds plausible and realistic to you. Think about episodes of The Simpsons. Did the antics of Homer and Marge seem realistic? Of course not. The show doesn't have that much narrative coherence or fidelity because very little of what happens in the town of Springfield seems realistic. From ex-presidents moving in next door to mutant tobacco plants, the Simpson family antics hardly seem like stories we might tell about ourselves.
Give me your lunch money. Well, it's after lunch. It's just an expression. Like, kick your butt. Could involve no kicking whatsoever.
An example of good storytelling is competing show King of the Hill. Unlike what goes on in The Simpsons, the happenings in the small town of Arlen, Texas seem to be a lot more like stories we might tell about ourselves, albeit with some notable exceptions.
It's against the law to fire this man. He's a drug addict.
Are you sure you don't want to shoot me? He's just suicidal, Peggy. He's not crazy. Bill, take off the dress.
Why do you keep calling me Bill?
Still, it's easy for us to understand how someone might take pride in buying a new mower or grow weary with the antics of their 11-year-old son.
6 a.m. and already the boy ain't right.
We say that this show has both fidelity and coherence. It connects with the audience, seems believable, and reminds us of similar stories we might tell about ourselves.
Do you gentlemen think you could spare a beer for a lady?
Come on, you know you're Bill.
No, I don't know that. I'm Lenore.
Well, if you're Lenore, then where's Bill? Huh?
Bill's in the house. You want me to go get him?
I'm skeptical that you could, yet intrigued that you may. Bill's been acting a little weird lately, don't you think? Maybe it's me.
Bill's busy. I needed a wrap. It's chilly.
It's a lot to think about, isn't it? We'll be right back. Folks, if you'd like to attend a taping of The Price is Right, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. How? Listen. To attend a taping of The Price is Right, starring Drew Carey, send your request, including the number of tickets and the dates you wish to attend, along with the self-addressed stamped envelope. Mail it all to Tickets. The Price is Right. CBS Television City, 7800 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. Come on down! Behind the Screens will continue right after this. Behind the Screens is brought to you by Campbell University. No matter what type of career you're looking for, Campbell's the place to be. With small class sizes and an experienced faculty, Campbell offers an unmatched educational experience. Doesn't matter what you want to do, in a creek, you got it all. The important thing to remember about narrative paradigm is it's all subjective. Not everybody is going to react the same way to the same story. Your background determines what you make of a story, so it's up to you to figure out which ones are true and which aren't. Chances are you already know what to look for. Do the characters act like you expect? Does everything fit together? Do you feel like the narrator is fudging the facts? Remember that storytelling is a lot like The Price is Right showcases. You've got an entire audience seeing the same prizes, but no two people are shouting the same thing when the contestant is ready to bid. Your background might not be the same as the person up here, so don't be surprised if you come up with a different answer than they do. I want to thank my special guest Walter Fisher for coming. For more information on anything we've covered, check out the Narrative Paradigm on Wikipedia.org or check out Dr. Fisher's books from your local bookseller. Stop me when I start to sound like Dr. Phil. Alright, well that's going to do it for tonight. Thanks for coming, everybody. Brandon Bridges reminding you to help control the pet population. Have your pets spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody. This is Brandon Bridges speaking for Behind the Screens, a Happy Humpers television production.